Good. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me today on Addicts Living Free. I got a great guest on the show. His name is Beau. Do you want to give a shout out to anybody before we get started here?
Oh man, just all the recovering alcoholics and addicts out there, man. One day at a time. You got this. Believe in yourself. You can get it done.
100%. Yeah. Nothing's impossible, right?
Nothing. Not a damn thing.
So I'll give you guys a fun fact about Beau here. Beau at one point was a major league draft for the Florida Marlins. How old were you when that happened?
I was 20 years old on that one. I was going into my senior year of high school. I was projected as a first or a second round pick and flunked out and had a lot of things happen. And a couple of years later, ended up getting drafted, and just surgeries and drugs and alcohol and all that other nonsense cut my baseball career short. But yeah, so I believe I was 20. I'm 49 now, so distant memory.
And you just celebrated a birthday, so happy belated birthday here too.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Another sober one down.
That's awesome. So the way I get every episode started is what's one thing you're grateful for today and why?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know if I can narrow it down to one thing, Matt, but I would have to say the greatest gift that I've gotten from my sobriety over the years is that I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I like who I am. So every morning I thank God when my feet hit the ground. I'm not in a prison cell. I'm not in a jail cell. So I'm grateful for my freedom. I'm grateful for the comfortability in my own skin. I'm just grateful for a new life.
Yeah. Nice. Cheers to that one. So we're going to get the show started here. Do you want to share with us what your childhood upbringing was like?
Yeah, I'll share a few minutes with it. So I'm the only, I guess, alcoholic or addict that I know of in my family. I think I had a drunk uncle somewhere, hanging out of a tree somewhere. I don't know. I think every family does, the obnoxious one that shows up somewhere at a barbecue or something. But going back to my childhood, I just can't remember anybody who had issues with drugs or alcohol except for myself. However, my childhood was incredibly dysfunctional and extremely violent, just full of violence. My dad is a Vietnam veteran. We haven't spoken in probably 15 years, and that's, really deep stuff. But it was tough, man. I was always a really good athlete on my teams. When like I told you earlier before the show, from Tennessee, and I moved it from Tennessee to Vancouver, BC when I was 5 and lived there until I was 15. And generally, most of those years were just really good sports, hockey, baseball, soccer, basketball, football, on and on. And a ton of beatings, man, a ton of verbal abuse and emotional abuse. There were some couple incidents outside of the family of sexual abuse tied in with drug addiction. And so my childhood was just insane, dude. It was just pure, unadulterated dysfunction. And unfortunately, the physical abuse kind of made me tough, to be honest with you, because in some of the places and institutions I ended up in later as an adult, you had to be tough. But it made me mentally, destroyed me, man. When I was 8 or 9 years old, a lot of kids go to bed praying, well, thank you, God, for whatever. Now I lay me down to sleep, the whatever prayer we learned in school. My prayers were like, God, please don't let me wake up. Please, I don't want to live anymore. And this is like 8 or 9 years old. And they're far different today, obviously. And it was just a extremely, extremely violent, dysfunctional childhood growing up. And the last thing I want to say about that is that I carried that with me, the insecurities and the hatred of myself and the self. I had no self-worth. I had no self-confidence. I had no self-anything. I had self-hatred, literally for decades. It just destroyed me. Not the physical stuff, but the emotional and you're an embarrassment. You're no good. You'll never amount to anything. Just all that kind of stuff. And I believed that. I believed it for years until I realized that that's just a bunch of bullshit. And I have control, of what I do with my own life, and I started to turn it around. So yeah, that's just kind of a roundup of what it was like.
So I just want to ask a quick question on this one. Did you always remember your childhood, or did you block portions of it out and then it kind of came back, or was it?
That's a good question. I had so many incidents, just like crazy incidents. I had like my father, if I had a bad first half in a basketball game when I was like seventh grade, maybe 12 years old, I want to say, He would take me across the street to bathrooms, like those old nasty 1980s dingy ass bathrooms, and just boom, smack me in the face, right off the bat, and kick the stall door open. And I remember one time he took my head and started dunking in the toilet and flushing it. He'd pull me up and then flush it again. And I'd go back across the street and finish the second half. And I had all those like blue urinal cake stains all over my uniform. And so stuff like that, I kind of blocked out for a while. But there were so many incidents like that. I mean, just every day was just like a beating for something or another, or just so, I think I just learned to become numb to it after a while.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten sober, and I'll be sober 6 years, God willing, December 3rd, my head, thank you. And, my head's cleared up. I've done a lot of work on myself, done a lot of work with other people, and things come back, but they don't come back in such a bad way for me. They come back in a way for me to where I've been able to deal with them and make amends with myself and other people if need be. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. How old were you when you ended up taking your first drug? And do you remember kind of what it did for you?
Yeah, completely. I was 11 years old, and it was marijuana. It was my first drug. I was at my buddy's house in North Van on the Seymour River, and we were listening to Frankie Zappa and Pink Floyd, and his older cousin had some weed, and he busted it out, and we smoked weed, and instantly it made me feel just this peace. I mean, I laughed like an idiot, couldn't stop laughing and giggling and stuff, but so that made me, just took away kind of these fears and insecurities that I had about myself, and it gave me just a little bit of fleeting peace in my life at the time. But the alcohol is what really was the big trigger for me. And like I told you before, I've had a long battle with illicit drugs, heroin, crack cocaine, methamphetamine, on and on, pills. But alcohol is where it all kind of started from me, or starts for me, when I used to be involved with alcohol and substances. So the first time I drank, Matt, I think I had 7 or 8 beers. This was probably, I was 11 or 12. And I got drunk as hell, and I threw up all over the place, and I was sick, and I came home and I got my butt kicked and all this stuff. And I'm laying on the bathroom floor, and I still remember this, and I'm covered in like vomit and all this stuff, and all I can think about is, as I'm coming to, is like, when can I do this again? And which makes no sense. But the reason why I wanted to do it again so fast was because it got me out of my own skin. It made me feel like I fit in somewhere, and it made me feel like I mattered. And it, just like I said, it brought peace to me. It took away anxiety. It allowed me to be somebody who I wanted to be, but maybe wasn't, all those things. So I just got addicted to it at an early age.
Yeah, me too. Like 12 years old, I was a fall down drunk. I was, and I loved it. I loved it in the fact that I felt okay, and then it was just, progressive after that. So how did things progress for you from that age, like 12? And
so like you said, you felt okay. I felt okay too. And the thing is, I actually really liked it, and it was a twofold thing. I liked the way it made me feel, the drugs and alcohol, but I more so liked the escapism aspect of it. Like all the nonsense and violence and dysfunctionality that was going on in my personal home life, I could escape it. And I felt that was like my only refuge, of the day. So I started, smoking weed at lunchtime at in grade school and high school. Then we started getting drunk and going to school. Had an incident when I was not even 15 yet, where it was a pretty terrible incident, but I'll just be very brief on this because it led to me chasing this for years and years. Is that me and a few of my buddies, I was 14, a couple of them were 15. Anyways, young teenagers, were downtown Vancouver looking for some weed, and this guy said, "Follow me." So I leave. I'm the one who leaves, follows him up to his apartment. His partner's in there, his buddy, and he's drinking whiskey. Says, "Hey, sit down, have a couple shots of whiskey, and dude's going to come back out with your weed. You can jam." And the guy comes out and he says, he looks at me and says, "Have you ever tried heroin?" And I'm like, no, I haven't. I've heard about it. They're like, "Well," and I'm like, yeah, I will, absolutely. So, they fixed it up and they shot me up. And it was like, to this day, like the greatest feeling I've ever felt in my life physically, but I couldn't move. I was a little bit drunk from the whiskey, and And anyways, long story short, those two men raped me that night. And yeah, it was really bad. And I stumbled out of there. They gave me some weed and said, never come back, and made it back to my friends downtown. And they were all, what's going on? And I said, I got the weed, just took a little bit longer. And of course, I didn't say a word. Didn't talk about that, Matt, until probably 25 years later, to be honest with you. And that led me, you know, and as bad as, you know, I'm not going to get into the blow by blow of that, you know, but it was an awful evening of what those two men did to me. And but the thing that I think about the most today from that incident is how I felt, that heroin going into my body. Even more so, it was stronger than what those two men did to me.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy, you know. And so I chased that for a long time, whether it was through crack cocaine or whether it was through heroin or pills or methamphetamine or alcohol, anything that could alter my state of mind, you know, from the neck up. And so that's just kind of, and so I had this double life going on with trying to, you know, maintain my baseball. And I was young, so I was still athletic, and I'm all beat up now, man, with surgeries and, you know, and all this stuff. And I just was good at hiding things. And that was a pretty bad incident that led me to always want more and more and more. You know, as they say, you know, one beer's not or, you know, too many, 1,000's not enough. I just can't stop when I start. So that's kind of how I led into a serious addiction. I was always open to try anything. Yeah.
That's how powerless is described, or I describe it. You know, once you start and you can't stop, and you do it when you don't want to do it, right? Like,
oh, completely.
That's powerless to me.
Yeah.
How did things, so from 21, like you're getting, yeah, I'm just guessing, did you kind of get your shit together a bit there to be able to qualify for drafting, you know, like how?
I'll tell you this. Yeah. No, it's a good question, because I'm all over the place on my life back then. So when I was 16, I moved to Miami, Florida, playing a bigger baseball school. I was always a U.S. citizen, so I had no issue going down there. And Miami is probably not the best place in the late 80s for an already drug addicted 16-year-old kid. You know?
Watch movies. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was just insane, man. But it was a lot of fun. Long story short, when I was in grade 11, as they say in Canada, you know, our junior year in the US, I threw pretty well, you know, but I was a tall, lanky kid, was probably 6'4" by the time I was, you know, 16, but 170 pounds, hadn't grown into my body, and I was throwing real hard. I threw in the 90s, had all these projections to get drafted the following year after my senior year in the first, possibly the second round, but probably the first round, and was in all these national magazines and this and that. And I just started, you know, going into my last year of high school, I had all these scholarship offers as well to these big schools in the US. And I was in downtown, this little suburb of Miami called Coconut Grove, and I was looking for weed. And I started to backslide a little bit, and I got robbed by these two guys. One guy pulled a knife on me, and one guy pulled a gun on me, and it was just stupid. They left me there and took my chain, and took my cash and all this stuff, you know. And I got back, and school hadn't started yet, and I just started down spiraling from there, you know, gambling, going to the dog tracks. Dog tracks are big down in Miami. There's a game called High Lie everyone goes to and gambles. There's a lot of illegal, you know, organized crime down there. So I knew a lot of guys that are involved in numbers and rackets. And so I went away from this baseball career that I had, this reputation that I had, and started moving towards this other stuff. And the reason that I was moving towards this other stuff was that I was just so addicted to drugs and alcohol. And so the problem is I dropped out of high school. I lost my eligibility to get drafted. So I had to go to a junior college. It's like a 2-year school, like up in Canada. And that was in California. So I went out to California to play, and I still could throw really hard. And I still had a lot of talent. The problem was, like in baseball, if you're a starting pitcher, you'll throw one day, and then you'll wait 5 days, you know, let your arm get better, and then you'll throw again. So on the first day, Matt, that I'm throwing, maybe I'm in good shape. I hadn't drinking the night before. I'm throwing 92, 93 miles an hour, looking great, just mowing guys down. 5 scouts are like, man, this kid's got it again. There's something to it. You know, maybe he's turned his life around. Excuse me. 5 days, 6 days later, when it's my time to take the hill again and start again, I'm unshaven. I reek like booze. I've been drinking for 3 days straight. My arm's hanging by a thread, and I can only hit 82 miles an hour on the radar gun, when 6 days ago I was hitting 94. And so scouts were looking at that saying, what's wrong with this kid? You know, what's going on? And they dig deeper and they find out my past. And a lot of them knew my past anyways from high school. And I ended up going to a school in Seattle, another college. And I ended up going from, in 1991, a projected first round, or at the very worst second round draft pick, fell all the way to a 71st round draft pick and needed more surgeries on my shoulder and called it good. I was done.
Yeah. So that was the end of that then, eh?
That was the end. Yeah.
So did that kind of put you into a spiral, or did you, want to try and redeem yourself, or just say fuck it? And
Well, I don't know if I ever really said fuck it. Like, I guess I did. My actions probably said I did, but inside I always wanted to. Baseball, I said screw it, but inside I always wanted to get sober because I just knew, because I got to the point where I was shaking all the time. My hands shook all the time if I didn't have booze in my system or pills. It was just a mess. I remember being at the chow hall at this college I was at in '94, the year I got drafted, and I had a fork and I was eating some vegetables, and they were on my plate, and I was sitting in front of this really good looking girl and talking to her, and I'm like, man, things are going good. And all of a sudden I just have this panic attack out of nowhere, and my hands start shaking, and I could feel myself sweating because the booze is starting to come out of my pores, and I'm starting to sober up a little bit because I had a little buzz. And I was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And that right then I knew I'm completely and totally dependent upon alcohol. So I never really got it together after that. I had spurts, I did enlist in the Army about 6 months after that, but that's just another drinking fest in its own right. Any country's military is just, when you're not on deployment or when you're not training out in the field, or I was in the infantry, so we were always like proud, like airborne infantry guys. And we're like, yeah, we're better than those guys. And just stupid macho bullshit. And so we would drink all day and all night, all day and all night. So my whole life, just up until really I got sober, it's just been drugs and alcohol, man, and homelessness and jails and prisons and all that kind of stuff. And let me be real clear. I want to say one thing. I am not a victim whatsoever, and I do not live in victimhood mentality. I don't blame other people for the situations that I found myself in, the abuse, I'm a big proponent of taking responsibility for our own actions. A lot of people, myself, maybe yourself, a lot of other people have been victimized, but it doesn't mean that we have to continue living in that. And that was a big thing, Matt, for me when I started to change my life. Is like, I said, dude, it doesn't matter what happened in your life. Like, you have to take charge of the present and moving forward, and only you can control that. And that was a big thing when I gave up that victim mentality.
Did you ever try quitting on your own, like over periods of time?
Yeah, I think I gave it a little weak. Like, I think I got just so sick and tired of going on these runners and being drunk that I think that, I think I was like hungover for days on end. But honestly, I went to several rehabs, because I'm a vet, so I get access down here in the U.S. to what's called the VA hospital. It's a veterans hospital, and so I went to I think I counted them the other day. I think I went to 14 different inpatient rehabs over the years. So I just established a pattern of that. I would go to a rehab, get better, get cleaned up, put on weight, start looking better. I'd go to, some meetings or just hang around people that were being sober, get my life together. And then because I was looking better, wasn't looking like death, and because I was feeling better, I always thought that I could control it, man. Like, not control it like I'm going to have one or two drinks. That never made any sense to me, but control it like I'm going to go out tonight to this bar or this club, and I'm going to have a good time and probably get hammered, just go crazy, but I'll wake up in the morning and I'll take a day to just sleep it off, and I'll go back to work the next day, and maybe I'll do it a month from now. But what I was doing still a month from now was I had been drunk and high every day. Just couldn't stop, man. Like, when all my normal friends were like, hey, it's 2 a.m. I got to go home because my wife's expecting me and I got to work in 7 hours. I'm going to the worst parts of town looking for crack cocaine, dude. Just looking like, in inner city USA, man, sticking out like a sore thumb. But, so that was kind of the way I handled my business back then, so I never really tried on my own.
Yeah. So you said you got clean 6 years ago, or coming up on 6 years. Yeah. Do you want to take us, maybe share some stories of, I don't know, I like to say the dark and dirty of our past, right? Like, share some stories with us, or a couple things, that made you realize, I don't know, fucking, I need a change of life, or just maybe looking back at some things and be like, I can't believe that happened in active addiction. And then we're going to get into how you got sober this time or what was different. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's no problem. Like I said, man, my life's an open book. The thing is that I don't look at alcoholics and addicts as bad people, man. I look at us as like spiritually sick people. And the problem with, I think, and I fully believe it's a disease, and that's my, I won't get into that, but the problem with it, I think, is that it robs us of all of our moral values, and the things that I'm sure that you have some moralities about you, or things that you believe in, and good things, and as I do, and as I always have. But when I'm in active addiction, man, those things are gone. I mean, they just fly out the window. So, man, I got so low, like, I shared needles with people. I had Hep C for 12 years. I took the treatment, Harboni, which so I'm completely cured of. It's not just dormant, it's gone. Back in 2015, I got that treatment. I sold myself on the streets. I prostituted my own self to other men, and I'm a straight guy, and it just, I robbed, I stole, I jumped people, I got beat up, I got stabbed, I've had my whole body just destroyed, been in hospital so many times. And the thing about it is, like, when I found out I had Hep C, the doctor called me in because I was donating plasma because I was homeless up in Spokane, Washington, a rough city, and just kind of bouncing from homeless shelter to alleys and flop houses, using dirty needles all the time, and used my sister's address so they could send me. They need to get a hold of me. So she calls me on my little whatever phone I had and says, "Hey, there's a letter here for you from the plasma clinic. All it says is you need to go in there and see him." And so I'm like, "Oh my God, I either have AIDS." And granted, this is 2002, so AIDS still was pretty. I don't know if I want to say a death sentence, but it's not like it is today.
Yeah.
I have several friends who are HIV positive, or a few friends who are HIV positive, just live a normal life.
Yeah.
But back then, 20, 25 years ago, it was sometimes a death sentence, or it could be hepatitis C. It was one of the two.
Yeah.
And my sister, who's my best friend today, we sat in the car outside this McDonald's before I went in because I was really nervous, and we talked for about an hour. And I said, "Well, what if I have AIDS? I could die. I'm 28 years old. I might be facing like the end of my life here." And I just remember her always saying to me, she's like, "Whatever happens, I'm going to stay with you, and we're going to get through this together." And that's the kind of person she is. She's not, she's the head basketball coach at University of Colorado, and she's a very Christian girl, and but just a wonderful human. Doesn't push anything on anybody. He's just always there and encouraging, and that's just another example. So I walk into that office. The doctor sits me down. He says, "Mr. Payne," last name, "we brought you here to tell you tested positive for the virus that causes." And I'm like, and I swear to God, it seemed like 20 minutes went by before he told me. It was obviously nothing. And he said, "Hepatitis C." And I jumped off that little doctor's bed and threw my fist in the air like that. And I'm like, "Oh my God," I wanted to hug the guy. I was so, because I'm like, I'm going to live. And I'll never forget this to the day I die. He says, "Mr. Payne, that is the strangest reaction that I have ever seen in my entire life to somebody who just found out that they have a fatal disease. And there was no cure for it at the time." And I said, "It ain't AIDS, doc. It ain't AIDS." And that night, I was out there firing up needles in my arm. That's the insanity of it. It's just crazy. So those are things like that. Selling myself, using dirty needles again when I know that it's going to kill me, just complete recklessness of my body and heart and soul, and just no regard for anything. Just absolutely, my soul was destroyed, Matt. It was gone. I was just a walking soul.
We talk about being a different person, right? Like, who we are under the influence is not who we are sober. Like, I actually went, I don't know, a few years back, probably 5 years now, I went and got Jekyll and Hyde tattooed on my hands, like half a face of, Mr. Hyde, and the other half was
That's
Dr.
awesome.
Jekyll, right? Yeah. So when I put them together, it creates one face. But, it's just a constant reminder that, the transformation that happens when I'm not in the right state of mind, right? And it doesn't matter if it's just a little bit of drugs or a lot of drugs or a lot of drink, it still transforms me as a person, regardless of the amount.
Regardless of the amount. And not even towards the end of my drinking and using, like even like halfway through it, when I drank and used for a long, long time, like I would have 5 or 6 drinks, say at a bar, and I'm feeling good, and I feel like I'm in the groove, the zone, And if I could stay there, then I'd probably, I don't know, back then, but I could never stay there. And there was this invisible point or invisible line that I would cross where my eyes were like light and bright, and like normal, to black. And my demeanor would be like, hey, having fun and chill, to like really aggressive, you know. And the way that I spoke to people was really aggressive, and I instigated fights, and I just became like you said, this Jekyll and Hyde. And even the people that I drank and used around, they even, you know, they didn't want anything to do with me.
Yeah.
I was just eventually on my own.
Just reckless, right?
Completely.
Yeah.
And an embarrassment too.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to have a buddy too, and every time he drank, it was like, fuck, here we go again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna get into some trouble tonight.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like, fuck, every time. Him wanting to fight the
go ahead.
carnies one night, you know, we went to the carnival and freaking trying to pick fights with the carnies, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got it right. Like bro code is, you got to be there, and you got to
be there, man. Yeah,
you just got to do it.
I know. Oh my God.
Thankfully,
Parties.
that period's passed. So getting to your clean date today here, you want to share with us like what your bottom was, what life looked like, and what was different this time, like that created that hope.
Yeah. This is the part that I really get excited about, you know, because I love sobriety so much, and I love everything that it's given me. And I love that I've been able to turn so many negatives in my life into positives, and then also, you know, help other people as well. Like I get to sponsor other guys and work with other guys in the program, things like that. So 2016, I had been in and out of jail and prison. I'd been to prison a couple times for about 4 years, and a couple more years in jail on top of that. So I'd been locked up for about 6 years or so over the years, homeless for a lot. Okay, so long story short, I violate my parole. I catch another beef, and it's like my third felony. And so I'm looking at life. And the first offer that they gave me, the prosecution, in the US, you go to like county jail, because we have like our municipalities are like different counties, we call them parts of the city or cities. And so I go to county jail and let that court process play out for 3, 4, 5 months. You sit in there until you go out to the joint, or to whatever prison throughout the state they're going to send you to do your actual time, 3, 4 years or 5, 10, 20, whatever it is. And I get in there, in my first appearance, and the judge says, well, Mr. Payne, you've gone to prison a couple of times before, but not for a very long time, once for 2 years, the other time for 2 years or something like that. And you've been in jail for a couple of years. And so you've got a lot of leniency. Granted, Matt, this is my 7th DUI and 4th in 10 years. And so when people drive drunk, eventually they're going to kill somebody. It's just the way it happens. But back then I didn't look at it that way, but that's the way I look at it now. So we have something down here. It's not like that 3 strikes law you hear about in California and stuff, but it's called a habitual offender, a persistent offender. And they're like, we're offering you a life sentence, but a mandatory 5 years to do before you're released. And I'm like, you're crazy. No, because I would probably do about 8 or 9 of that before I got released. And so anyways, the court process played out, got it down to a 10-year sentence with 4 to do before I got released. And I actually ended up doing a little below that. I think like 42 months or 40 months or something. But so I know what prison's like, especially in the US. It's different security levels and everything, but it's tough. I'm sure it's tough in Canada. It's tough everywhere. It sucks just being locked away and away from your family members. But another thing about prison, besides all the violence and all the gangs and all that bullshit, is drugs, alcohol, prostitution, gambling, extortion. I mean, you name it. I mean, just the correctional officers are in on it. I mean, the nurses are in on it. It's just one big giant free for all of just debauchery and criminal behavior. And, and I'm like, oh my God, here I go again. I'm 42 at the time, and I'm going back to the joint, and I got sentenced to 4 years. And I'm like, something's got to change, So I actually ended up, like I said, I did a little over 3 of it, but got parole early. And I just started, I prayed one day in my cell. I said, God, please help me. I didn't even know who I was praying to. I just was praying to God. I'm like, I know I've been in 12-step meetings. I've been in other recovery programs, rehabs long enough to know that if I'm ever going to get better, it can't be by my own will. And I need help. I absolutely need help. because I have tried, or half-heartedly, to do this thing on my own. So I really had like a come to Jesus moment. I don't mean like in a religious, I'm just using that as a phrase, but I was looking in the mirror shaving one day, and you can't have any real glass, so you can't really see your face. It's all wobbly looking and
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
and warped
Polished
looking.
steel. Yeah, polished steel. That's what it is. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm just like, God, what a metaphor for my life, just worked. You know, I have no grasp on anything, and just, you know, and all of a sudden these waves of guilt and emotion started coming over me about how I've been an absentee father, how I've been a terrible son to my mother. The only person I had left in my life was my sister, who had always stayed with me through thick and thin. And I just was like, man, bro, what are you doing? You have all this ability, you have all this, you know, you're a lot of God-given gifts as a kid, and you know, and I get it, the past is behind you, but you can make a difference. And I started to pray, and I just said simple things like, I just need some guidance. Please help me. I need some guidance. I can't go back to what I was doing. When I leave this place, I want to be a different person. And slowly but surely, man, felt like all the bad stuff about me started to wash off, and it was replaced by these feelings of like, I started helping guys on the rec yard. Like in prison, you got to kind of portray yourself as not meek and not weak. And some of the guys that were kind of timid and they wouldn't volunteer to play like basketball or prison athletics and stuff, I started helping them learn how to do things like swing a bat properly, field a ground ball, shoot a jump shot, stuff that may sound silly just talking about it, but it gave them confidence. And then I would see them start to perform better on the on the recreation, you know, the rec yards. And then I would see them walking in like general population to the chow hall amongst like 1,000 guys, and their chest is out and their chin, you know, their chin's up, and they're like, they're not like strutting, you know, or acting all, but they're just, you just see the subtle, yeah, exactly, man, and seeing the subtle changes. And then I started going to recovery meetings and anything to get out of your cell, you know, like I went to like Mormon service, Taoism, Buddhism, Catholic, Protestant, you know, whatever. And but I told myself, I'm going to go to all these services with an open mind. You know, I'm going to try to be, you know, non-judgmental, and I just wanted to soak it all in. And I ended up just sticking with the 12-step recovery meetings in prison. Started sharing my experience, strength, and hope to other guys who were brand new to it. And I just saw that this life of helping other people and being of service I just felt like a calling. You know, I felt like a calling, and this is where I kind of developed this code, and it's solution, service, and gratitude. And it's for me, and I'll be quick about this, but solution is I have to put my recovery in front of every single thing, being, person, entity, whatever in my life. Has to come first, or I'll lose it. I have decades of, you know, of proof that I will lose that. So I've been taught a lot of good principles of, you know, staying sober one day at a time. So that's number one in my life. Service is one of the things that I have to always be, and I have to be of service to other guys, you know, other people, I guess, you know, and whether that's showing up and making coffee, whether that's taking a call with someone calling me at 2 a.m., you know, or just whatever, just being there for somebody, or sharing my experience, strength, and hope with somebody. And three is gratitude, man. Because I know that, and I'm not trying to sound generic, because it really isn't for me. Like I truly feel it. I've had this just massive turnaround over the years of like inside, intrinsic, the way I feel. And excuse me. And so when I'm in gratitude, man, I can't be negative at the same time. It's just not possible, you know? So if I start to be negative, I can just do something like flip the script. And like this morning, man, I terrible back, dude. I need back surgery. And I woke up and I'm like, oh, my back hurts, dude. I don't want to do this. I had stuff to do all day. And then I'm like, wait a second, dude. No bitching, no griping. Your feet are on some nice carpet. You just got out of a really nice bed, even though your back hurts. You know, you're not like in a cell with some nasty other dude, and you know, and so I just flip the script on things, and I try to be grateful for really everything that I come across, the good and the bad. Because if I can be grateful for in my life, I have problems, and we all have problems, you know. But if I can be grateful through the tough times of my life, that I always, you know, that gives me an opportunity to come out of it without drinking, without using drugs, and then to show somebody else how to do it as well. So I can always, I've learned, granted, I couldn't do it in the past, but I've learned over the years how to take, you know, any bad situation and turn it into a positive. You know, I had a very close friend pass away about 10 days ago, fentanyl OD. The guy was so nice, so kind, tough. He was a college athlete, did a lot of prison time with him because he just had demons, man, like we do. He was a roughneck oil worker in North Dakota. He was a natural born leader, man. Everybody loved him, and he just had demons, man. Couldn't stop. Yeah, and he knew the end game. I do too, but it's still sad. But so if I can help somebody not have to go down that road, I'm all for it.
Yeah, like, and the show, there's another way. Well, and the one thing I love about like being involved in fellowship and all that is it's not just someone telling me how to do it. You know, it's the fact that everybody is living proof of it. You know, that nobody has to do it alone. You know, we lead by example, right? And the proof's in the pudding, you know. So
Completely.
I just want to ask you one question about when you were in there and your recovery started. Any in times of maybe temptation, were you ever tempted, and how'd you get through those?
It's funny, great question, because I get asked that a lot. So my previous stints in jail and prison, I used drugs all the time. Like we would get fentanyl patches, break them open, light them on fire, smoke them. We'd crush our pills and snort them. We, methamphetamine came in through the guards, the COs, and the nurses. It just all, like I said, it was just a craziness. So when I told myself I'm going to stay away from it all, I started, praying, like I said, and I started asking for guidance. And one of the things that happened to me was, and I started working with a sponsor in a 12-step program. There's the obsession to use just left me. So short answer is no, I didn't have any temptation whatsoever my last 3 years. And then I've been out for about 3 years, and I haven't had any temptations since I've been out either. So. Nice. But it's a great question. It's a fantastic question.
Yeah. How long did it take you, if you had to guess, looking back, for that obsession to kind of be removed, or you felt like I was going to be okay?
It was pretty quick, to be honest with you, because I knew, because I put myself through decades of hell. And I just knew, and I have a tough time articulating what was different, because I had so many epiphanies over the years, like, this is different, this is it, and then to find myself with a drink in my hand again and looking for drugs. But I just knew beyond my heart of hearts that it was over. Yeah. And so when I finally gave in, like, I can't do this anymore. Every time I touch the shit to my lips, I'm looking for drugs, and I'm gone for weeks, and then I'm back in jail, I'm back in prison. So I just knew, and that's the best way that I know how to explain it. I had just taken too much. I had the pain, though. I want to tell you this, the pain of not being a father to my children. I have a son and a daughter. They're both in their 20s now, and I have a great relationship with my daughter, and my son and I are working on things, and it's up to them when they want to come, advance our relationship. But they're certainly so much better than it used to be. But the pain of hurting other people got to be way more than the pain of, oh, woe is me, I'm locked up again, you don't understand how bad it is, you get to go walk in the free world and breathe the air and go watch a movie or go to dinner. But I started, like, I had a wife at the time, and she divorced me, and she should have, and I'm glad she did, because her life was good, my life was good, and it gave me time to work on myself. But I started thinking, like, instead of like, oh, you won't put money on my commissary account or my books or this and that, I flipped the script on that. I'm like, wow, I left her with like a mortgage payment or a rent payment, and I left her with, now she has half the income to pay the bills, and she doesn't, and just stuff like that. And I had to look at it through a different lens, and just suddenly I just started, that whole victimhood mentality started washing away, and that whole take responsibility for yourself attitude started replacing it.
Yeah, and it's all a matter of perspective, right? And just,
completely. Yes.
I would say one of the greatest gifts for me in recovery, one of the greatest gifts I've been able to do is separate logic from emotion, and be able to take myself out of an equation to be able to see kind of the bigger picture, and be able to learn from it, as opposed to like feeling those feelings and, being a victim or getting upset, or, just, it's pretty amazing that, I can see things differently today. So when you, so I keep getting choked up here. When you got out, like, what was your relapse? What stopped you from going back to your old life? Like, what did you do, and the transition of it?
Yeah, no, that's another great question, because we got a phrase, a saying. A lot of guys that have done jail, especially prison time, out the gate at 8 in the spoon by noon.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. Wow, that's a kind of the popular one. And unfortunately that was me a lot of times, whether the spoon is drinking or literally, and it's just a general phrase. You're getting messed up pretty soon after you walk out the gate. So I was in a state pen up north in the state, and I had to go stay at a halfway house for about 6 months before I was able to get out back on my own. So I took an 8-hour bus ride home. I was free. This was like after 3.5 years. I was like, oh wow, man, like the trees and just everything, it's and I'd gotten out before and gone straight to look, I'd gone straight to a local convenience store, got booze, got some beers, a couple 40s or whatever, and got buzzed, and then went looking for drugs. This time I hopped a bus, a Greyhound bus. It was about an 8-hour ride home, and I was on parole again. I checked into my halfway house, Matt, and that night my butt was in a meeting, and I've never looked back, because I knew, and I said, if I don't, well, like I said, the obsession had been removed, so I was in a different mindset, and like you talk about, perspective is huge. And I was just over. I was just done. I was done hurting people. I was done hurting myself. I was done letting my past define who I am. I was done being a failed baseball player. I was done being this abused child. I was done using all these excuses. I was just done. I was ready for a new life. And I had known, and so I started to emulate other men in the program who I wanted what they had. Not to sound generic, you hear that in the rooms, but my sponsor just got 32 years the other day. He got sober in prison like 28 years ago. Got out 4 years in the joint, got out. He's been sober 28 since, so he's an old biker dude, and just tougher than shit, man, tatted from neck to ankles, but he's one of my best friends, we're a little bit different, the way we dress, whatever, but we're the same. Yeah. And it's like you and I are the same, you know what I mean? And I love that about being in recovery, whatever mode of recovery somebody chooses, we're all in it together. And I love the connection, man. People talk about connections, the opposite of addiction. And that's why I like coming on shows like yours or meeting people like you. Just like-minded people, man, and this is who I got to be around.
And how, I was sharing this at a meeting, because I go to meetings myself too, and just how blessed I am that I can go anywhere and I have connection with people if I choose, like I think about normies, have to go through life and maybe go through shit and have to do it by themselves, where I don't have to go through anything alone today in life. Like there is always people that I can go and connect with that will welcome me in there, and how fucking lucky am I to like be able to experience that?
Unbelievable. And I think, you and I talked about the speaking stuff. And so I travel a lot now, and on occasion, and I can go anywhere, any destination, and find a meeting, or, whether it's AA, NA, CMA, CA, whatever, I know I can go be around my people, and you're right. And so, I don't say, my name's Beau, I'm a grateful alcoholic, but sometimes when I share, I'll talk about, I'm grateful that I found this program, because it's not only saved my life, it's given me a life, man. It's taught me how to live, dude. I grew up in this program, it taught me how to be I don't want to say be a man, I'm not some misogynistic, guy, but like it taught me how to be a human being and a grown-up, and it taught me how to be responsible, and taught me, like, you take drugs and alcohol away, we're still left with all the shit, that we, but it taught me how to deal with it, and it taught me how to be less selfish and less self-centered, and a better father, a better friend. It taught me how to live with integrity, and it taught me how to deal with tough times, and it taught me that the solution for me doesn't lie at the bottom of a bottle of Jack Daniels, man. The solution lies in asking for help and being around like-minded people and stuff like that, man. So
all my life skills that came from like
the
same spot. Like that's how I learned how to live. Like I had no fucking clue. Like I had no idea. My life was like get up, do drugs, go to bed. Do that was it. I had no life. I couldn't even pick up the phone to call somebody. Like
I mean, we were great at that. I imagine. Like I would smoke meth to get up in the morning. I'd drink all day, take pills to come down, pass out, and then I'd wake up and repeat.
Yeah.
There were other things, but in a nutshell, I was good at that. I had zero life skills, and I'm not dumb. I just,
it just sucks you in, right? You cross it becomes a lifestyle, right? Yeah.
I'm
going to ask you, I don't know how difficult this one is, making peace with your past then. How do you like let go of that crap? or come to
Yeah.
terms or accept it, you know, and
Yeah.
leave it behind you.
No, I love this. I'm glad you asked me this because a lot of people struggle immensely with this. I don't want to say this in an arrogant way, but I don't struggle with this anymore. I did, however, for a long time because I felt like, okay, well, I failed at baseball. I was this big national prospect, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that for a pat on the back. I'm truly like one of the, I don't care any about that. It's just a platform. But so once people lose their identity, like when I lost my identity, I was just like, oh, wow, I am a failure. Maybe I am all those things my father told me. You're an embarrassment. You're pathetic. You're nothing. You'll never. And so I started validating all that stuff. And then I was in the army and I was a good soldier, but I drank my way out of that 3-4 years later. And so I lost my identity on that. And all the abuse as a child, I'll tick every box, kind of what I alluded to without getting, too graphic into it all, wasting time on that. I had to do work on myself. And what I came to, Matt, I'm sorry, excuse me, is that, like I told you earlier, I refuse to let my past define who I am. There are going to be people, and there are still people that will take shots at me, say, you're not an ex-con, you're still a convict, and you're full of shit, and this and that. I'm like, dude, and they'll try to hang like what I did, like you had 7 DUIs, you smoked crack in a car while you were driving, and you had a driving on the wrong side. What if you killed somebody? You're just nothing but a. I'm like, dude, I've already admitted all this stuff. I don't do it anymore. Haven't done it in years. You have no power over me. It's like, go away or go tell someone who cares, because I certainly don't care about it anymore. And I realized, Matt, all I can do is control myself. And I want to get to the forgiveness part. I think there's a component to that question you asked me. And my father was a horrible, horrible human being. And I don't condone nor have I forgiven the things that he did to me, or will I ever forgive those things. But as a whole, I have forgiven him as a human being, because, and simply for one reason, I can't walk around with hate in my heart. I can't, because, well, I talked up earlier about that, service and solution and gratitude. Well, I can't be of service to anybody when I'm just pissed off and angry all the time. How am I going to help anybody? Yeah. And helping people to an extent is kind of selfish for me, because I found that when I started helping people, like I told you, when I was back in prison, when I started really trying to reach out and help, like for good, my motives were pure, like for the right reasons. Yeah. I felt good about myself. And then in tune, that started helping me be a better man too. And that's what I want to be today, so I can't afford to just be angry and pissed off. So I've kind of come to the place with some people, just neutrality, hey, I can't change what happened, but I'm not going to stay mad at you, because that's just blocking me off from helping other people. So.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And, when I hear people like, and this is just my perspective, is when, we help others and kind of selfish, I want to argue that one a little bit, in the sense of, we help other people's, but our motives aren't selfish. We're not consciously thinking like, that if I help this person, I get this in return, right? It's out of the goodness. And that's where we find, I forget how it was put, but that's how we find ourselves. I forget the right word. You said something and it triggered me to think of that one.
I know where you're going with this though.
Yeah. Like not defining ourselves. Yeah. But it creates who we are. We find who we are by helping others. Right.
I had no idea who I was for years. I lived scared. Like I was a 6'4", 220-pound athlete, big guy, but I lived like I was scared of my own shadow, and I didn't know who I was. And I had all these identity. Like I always compared my insides to other people's outsides. Like I always thought people had their shit together. Like, why do they look so good? Or why do they sound so good? Or why are their movements so perfect? Or just the stupidest things, man, that my brain was playing tricks on me. And I would look at everybody else and think that, oh, they laugh and they joke together and everything just looks like a Hollywood movie. And I'm over here in the corner feeling like the piece of the jigsaw puzzle that doesn't fit in, and just want to blow my brains out because I hate myself so much. Yeah. And it's just is like, I don't know, man. And that's not the case anymore. And so I drank and used to fit in, and until I realized that I was good enough, on who I was. And then when I came to that, belief that, okay, I'm good. then I could start working on myself and become better and better. And then I think that, exactly to your point, my motives, your motives, people who have pure motives about helping people, they're good. Like I didn't start to help people because I'm like, oh, maybe if I help them, I'll feel better about myself. You know, I just started helping people because it's like I asked for guidance, dude, when I prayed, and that's what came, help other people. And I started to do it, and I started to feel better about myself. Now, did I ask to feel better about myself? Hell no.
Yeah.
Do I like it? Yes, absolutely. I'd be lying if I didn't. But who does? But when I like who I am, or or like the things that I do, and there's times where I know we can always be better, but I know that I'm a better person for it. The world's a better person for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're not out getting drunk and drinking, when I'm not out getting drunk and drinking, when people like us are not out terrorizing the world, man, it's a better place.
People sleep better at night. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm going to ask you this question. This is a question I love asking all the guests is, what are some mentors or role models in your life, and what area of your life?
Yeah. Gosh, great question too, man. All great questions. So my sister, I gotta say, like I was in a meeting today and we were talking about looking at people as not with malintent, not evil people, we're sick, spiritually sick. And my sister is someone who has stuck with me through, years. She has walked her butt into crack houses, and she's a pretty, younger, taller, just normal looking girl, and dragged me out of there and helped me financially, and not anymore with that, but just, and I look at the unconditional love and no judgment that she ever, gave me. And the last time I was in prison, I asked her, I said, JR, her name's JR, and I said, Jay, why have you been so good to me and stuck with me? And she's like, over the last 3+ years that we've been talking, since you've been incarcerated again, I have yet to hear you complain one time. And all I've heard out of you is you take complete responsibility for your situation. And she says, that in my book shows that you are a changed man. She said, I would stick with you regardless because I love you and you're my brother, but I'm so proud of you. And so I look to my sister as that kind of non-judgmental, unconditional love that she has for people. I try to be like that. Am I like that with everybody? No, I'm better at it, but human being, we have faults. I like the men in the program, or men in recovery, that I've been married and divorced 3 times before I got sober, all kind of in the program. So I don't date in the program anymore. It's a big thing with me. Yeah. Just myself, I just know that I just can't get mixed up in that. So I look at the other men who I kind of want to emulate, like I mentioned earlier, that quiet humility, and like I said, my sponsor is this badass looking dude, and old biker, tatted, years in the joint, but 32 years sober. And he ends his shares with, sobriety is great, but a relationship with God is everything. And he's just a quiet, humble guy. And then he leaves the meeting and gets on his chopper, and rides away looking like a badass, but just guys that are about it, that are real, from all walks of life. And like I said, like you said, I learned life skills in this program. I learned how to grow up in this program, be a man in this program. And so you'll see guys in the program, in the rooms, and I'm sure you've seen them too, that are 20, maybe 30 years, whatever, that are just miserable or angry or loud or obnoxious all the time. It's like, I don't want to be like that. That's not the kind of sobriety I strive for. So I put a big premium on one day at a time, quality sobriety. And the people that I see that in others are role models to me. So I guess no one's specific. Tom Brady, I don't know, he's above my shoulder here.
Well, living in the moment too is huge for that one, I think, right? Like, for that happy recovery, it's living in the now and experiencing it, like being 100%. In the moment, getting the full thing. I'm going to ask you a few more questions here.
Yeah, shoot.
Unexpected gifts in recovery.
Oh my gosh. Unexpected, my restored relationship with my daughter and my mom. And I didn't expect either of those to ever happen because like back in 2009, and my mother's been through 3 cancers, beat them all. Tough lady. Talk about living in the now. She's the one who's always like, Beau, listen, we live in the what is, not the what if, or not the what has been. It's the what is. Yeah, it's awesome. And my mom back in 2008 or 9, she's like, dude, I love you, but you're gone. You're out of the family for good. I had a small stroke. I've just given you thousands upon thousands of dollars and bailed you out, and you've lied and cheated, and you're killing me. And she loved me, therefore she didn't love me, and she would, do those things. And her doctors advised her, said, you got to cut your son loose. And so 2019 or something, my sister calls, and they all live in Boulder, Colorado. And she's like, do you want to come spend Christmas with us? And I'm like, well, what about mom? And she's like, no, she's all on board for it, And so I get to get out there, and I've got like a few pictures on my social media, and I look at them a lot. And to see my mom in the airport, I think it was 2020, I can't remember, a couple of years ago, just the joy on her face, and she told me when I left, she's like, I'm so proud of you, and that's what I wanted to hear forever. I didn't care. I didn't want money or anything. I didn't need any of that. I wanted my mom to be finally proud of me. You know what I mean? And so that was a great gift. And then this year, God, this will make me choke up and cry probably, but my daughter Ashley, she'll be 23 here in a couple months, or a couple weeks actually. And I didn't see her for almost 10 years because of jail and prison, and last time I saw her, she was 12. And I tried to reach out to her a few times, in and out, and she's like, no, sorry, go away. And about 6 months ago, I'm laying in bed at night, and I look over and I get an Instagram message come across my messenger. Maybe it was a Facebook Messenger, and I'll, how they preview it, on your phone, and it's all it said was dad, and then a couple lines, and I'm like, I was like, oh, because I just love her so much. And I opened it up, and it was so sweet. And she said, Dad, I want you to know that I forgive you, and I was never mad at you. It's just that I feel like because I'd reached out to her with nothing coming back, and I understand that, and I was patient. And she said, I just want you to understand, it's like I feel like I don't know you anymore, and I feel uncomfortable. I don't know what to say to you, but I am in town, and I would like to, if you'd like to meet, we can have coffee tomorrow. And I was like, are you kidding me? Of course, man. And so this was like 6 months ago, and first time in almost 10 years, I got to see my daughter, and now we talk all the time. And she just came down a few weeks ago, and she's got her own little family, and I get to, so those are two unexpected, soon, actually. Soon? 4 months, man. I don't want to blow it. Yeah, she won't see this. So, yeah. But and then I found out she was 5 months pregnant, and she's real tall, so she didn't really show it. But I was like, oh, baby bump. And sure as shit, man, she's pregnant. So I'm so happy. And she got a great husband, fantastic little family, really solid people. And so I get to be a grandfather. I get to be a father again. These are things, honestly, Matt, that I thought were done. They were gone for me. Even I had hoped, because I have a lot of faith, I really do. And I'd hope someday things would get, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, man, I caused so much trouble, and that this might never happen. And they both, my mom and my daughter. So yeah, those are probably my biggest unexpected gifts.
I can see it on your face right now. Like, just lit right out, like just the excitement. Yeah, but that's amazing, right? Like that's one of the,
like we were talking earlier. You remember how we were talking about like how people get excited to talk about like the recovery or the gifts from recovery. And it's like, it's better than any high ever. Like when my daughter, just little things like, Dad, I'm in town, can we go have dinner? And I get to hug her and kiss her and take pictures and stuff like that, dude. It's just,
it's priceless.
Yeah,
it's priceless.
Don't even have the words for it. So.
I'm gonna ask you this last question then. Do you want to share with us, like, or describe freedom from addiction? How do you describe that?
Oh my gosh, I was so chained up, literally physically for so long. But I tell you about my prison and jail time, and I've been in a lot of prisons, penitentiaries, but the worst damn prison I've ever been in is the one between my 2 ears, to where, like I said, I hated myself. I was so addicted to everything. I thought I was no good. I thought I couldn't go on. I was suicidal. I had no idea how to live. All I knew how to do was get drugs and alcohol. And I was just absolute slave to that stuff for years. And nowadays, it's generic, but the living rather than existing thing. But after I do this, I'm going to go hit the gym, and I'm going to go out and probably take a hike in the mountains, and my health is good again. And just I'm not a slave to that stuff. And I'm not a slave to that kind of thinking anymore. Like I didn't just put the bottle down and the drugs away. You know, I did work on myself, and I do work, and it's made me this person that I want to be. It's given me freedom. Like I get to fly around the country and talk, and I get to give speeches, and I have a little career again, you know, and I get, and just freedom from the bondage of self. I was just completely and totally a slave to alcohol and drugs in every last facet. And I think you can probably agree or know what I'm talking about just by talking.
I think a lot of people can.
I think a lot of people can. So nothing mind, you know, earth shattering or anything. I'm just free in every facet, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. It's just a great life, you know, and I would encourage anybody who is struggling or thinking about getting into recovery or thinking about stop doing drugs or thinking about, you know, or maybe think, oh, it's too tough or I can't do it. Well, you can do it. And there's freedom and some beautiful promises of a beautiful life waiting for people on the other side of it. So I would not, you could not give me anything to trade my life today.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That makes me smile. Like
Yeah.
like,
Cool.
oh yeah, like I love hearing that stuff, right? Like yeah, it just it's inspiring, and I just, you know, seeing the glow and just what it does for people, right? This transformation it just touches my heart, right? So that pretty much brings us to the end of the time. You know, I would love to keep this going, you know. I mean, I'd love to keep talking. But I do gotta close it off. So with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your time, your truth with us. I always let the guests finish up. So if there's something like take us home, something you want to leave the listener, something you want to say that maybe we didn't touch on, but I like it for you to share your final thoughts.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's been a good time. I really appreciate it. And I just, you know, I love, my favorite people in the world are people that have walked through fire and have come out the other side of it. And if you are just, like I said earlier, man, you know, sometimes, you know, amazing things are born out of real tough and dire circumstances. So just don't give up. Just sometimes it's as simple as putting your left foot in front of your right, breathe and repeat. And eventually it's going to happen. So just never give up on yourself, because I was as hopeless as an alcoholic and addict as there ever has been, along with probably Matt and many other people that can understand my story. And I made it out. And anybody out there who is struggling, just ask for help and you can make it out.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, 100%. Well, thank you, Beau. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing your time.
Yeah,
Thanks
my
for sharing
pleasure.
your truth. You know, I truly love this conversation that we had. And we'll get you back on the get you back on the show again here in the future and share some more with us. So
love to.
Awesome. And for the rest of you guys listening, I'll leave you the same way I leave you every episode, and that's make lots of memories, make memories, take lots of pics, and show the world your smile. Cheers.
All right.
Stop.
We off or?
No.